Hello, in this video I'm going to go over my updated tactical Bladestorm build. I have switched this over to a Magicka build, and the reason I did that is because I wanted to get a in-class execute. I was using Whirling Blades as a stamina execute because I didn't have a stamina execute in the classes that I had, so I switched this to a Magicka build, and it still works pretty well. So I think it's probably a little stronger. Um, I'm hitting just over 95,000 on the dummy here. I'm sure that better parsers could probably hit much higher than I do, but I'll show you how this setup goes. Basically, I have quite a few dots on this build, and the AoE damage is incredible. So the Durensi's set, as I've shown in the previous video, is extremely powerful if you can stack this on top of ads that are not moving and have them just basically get stuck in the Bladestorm. The damage from this is incredible. And when you pair this with the tentacle, then it's really impressive because the tentacle will stun them and essentially hold them in the Bladestorm if you proc both sets together. So how I like to do this, I'll just end that there because it's going to take too long to parse. Basically, the rotation for this build, as you can see on my back bar here, I've got the Archer, and then I've got Gravelord's Sacrifice and Hurricane. Then I also proc Blade Cloak. And so while I've got all these three, now let's see this. Let's say this is a group of ads that I want to go in. As I'm approaching and I have all these up, I will throw my spear right there and then bar swap and hit Wall of Elements and then Lightning Flood. And then I will swap to my front bar and start hitting my spammable. And so you can get a lot of AoE damage on this build, and you can stun enemies very easily with that skill. Just like that. And as you can see, the damage over time, the orange numbers, there's a ton of them, and there's also direct damage being done. There's just a ton of damage in this build. If you were to bring this into a trial, you'd probably do pretty well, although I will say that the penetration on the build is a little bit high because Durensi's has such a large amount of penetration. I should probably wait until the dummy buffs drop off and I can do that again. But let me go over the build real quick while I'm waiting for that. I have each 5-piece set on the daggers, one of each. I've got the perfected Yandir's dagger with the Durensi's dagger, and that makes the Durensi's on my front bar always have 4 pieces, and then Yandir's has 5 on the front bar. If I bar swap, then Yandir's has 4 pieces. So I always have 4 pieces of both sets, and then Durensi's is on my back bar. Then for the monster set, I've got the Orphean, the Tactician. This is from Lepsiclusa, This came out in Update 45 with the Fallen Banners DLC. And then Yandir's Might comes from Kind's Aegis. If you have the perfected version, you'll get an extra line of weapon damage. That was a recent change that used to say penetration for the perfected. Now it's weapon damage. This set really does a lot of damage. And then the Gerences is absolutely a monster. The reason why I paired these two sets here, the Orphean and the Gerences, they do physical damage. So what I basically did with this build, the Storm Calling has Energize, which buffs physical and shock by 5%. And then I went with the Necromancer for the increased damage over time here, as well as here. This buffs all of your damage over time, not just your Necromancer skills. This will buff all of your damage over time by another 15%. And then the Adric Spear skill line, I picked that mainly because it's a very easy skill to get the passives from without having to slot a ton of stuff. The spammable is physical damage, and it is really a good spammable. I am using a stamina morph of this on a Magicka build, which is extremely odd, but I have found a way to sustain this pretty well, and that is with the food that I'm running. This is another one of those setups that I've previously spoken about where you kind of have an off-kilter setup where I'm using a max stat food with recovery of the opposite resource. So I'm using the Crunchy Spider Skewer, which has the max Magicka and stamina recovery to it, so that my recoveries are a bit balanced, a bit more balanced, I should say. I'm using a tripod for my potion, which will get me both of these recoveries. So when I pop my potion, as you can see, they both go up. And then my Magicka recovery doesn't actually need to be that high because my bar is so big, and it really is pretty easy to sustain the Magicka. The stamina being really high like that is really helpful to stay up so that I can hit the spammable. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 stamina skills. So I'm actually thinking about maybe changing this to a Magicka skill to kind of ease up on the drain of stamina so that that'll be a little bit more AoE as well. But just to give you an idea of what this looks like when you're parsing on an ad pull, it is so fun to use this build overland. Like I said, I've got these 4 skills, as you can see, ticking off on my bar there. I start with the spear, and then I bar swap, drop the Wall of Elements, the Lightning Flood, and then if I've got my ultimate, I'll throw that as well in there. You just want to try and keep up all your damage over time up in the area if you can. This is it's a face melter of a build. It's really fun to use in Overland. I've been doing a lot of my Overland dailies with this build, and it is just super, super fun. I recommend giving it a try if you haven't farmed these sets. The Undaunted event, is coming up next week on the 18th of September of 2025, and if you're watching this in the future. The Undaunted event is a great event for farming sets, so you can get your double drops out of those dungeons and fill them up. And finish that off, and we'll see what we got. Decent numbers. Maybe that's... in the high 40s, not bad for an ad pull without any dummy buffs and any trials buffs being given to me. So that's pretty good, I would say. and that's fairly well on par with a beam build, what a beam build will do to this ad pull. But if you like this video, please check out my YouTube channel. I will go over my slottables here really quickly. I have Exploiter, Master at Arms, Biting Aura, and Thermatug slotted. And then these are kind of, they don't really matter much. But I am using a Thief Mundus. And get my critical buff there. There's my critical buff. Let me get my Major Brutality and Sorcery, and we'll show you how high the damage gets on this. It gets really high. The Yandir's Might is a really good set for this. All you have to do is get the stacks up to 5 now. You don't have to get it up to 10 like it was before. So as soon as you reach 5 stacks, you're at the maximum. So as you can see on that, I've got $7,500 damage with almost 40% critical chance when I have the siphon, the shock siphon applied. But let me go over the skills really quickly. I've got Deadly Cloak, Blazing Spear, Biting Jabs. This is the stamina morph of the spammable from Adric's Spear. Mage's Wrath for the Execute. Mystic Siphon, I picked this because it does shock damage. It will do more damage with the Sorcerer skill line, as well as the fact that it gives recoveries, which is really helpful. I know the detonating siphon probably does more damage in most cases, but I went with this one for the shock damage because of the Sorcerer skill line. Flawless Dawnbreakers on the front bar here. My Archer, Gravelord's Sacrifice, Hurricane, Blockade of Storms. This will proc off balance so that you can keep your Exploiter slottable going. And then Lightning Flood. This is pretty much these two skills right here will proc both the Gerency and the Tactician's set. So I'll show you what the Tactician one looks like just by itself. That's it right there. And I have done a video on each of these sets individually. But and then I'll drop the Bladestorm on this guy here. And there it is there. You can see it whirling. So this is a really fun build to run around for Overland. Give it a try. I really recommend it. It's a lot of fun. If you've seen my previous build, basically all I did was I changed to a Magicka build, which is the glyphs are all Magicka now on the body, and then I changed my Execute to a Mage's Wrath. That's just pretty much about the only change I did. And then I did the food is different. I am now running Crunchy Spider Skewer, and it is pretty easy to sustain. That's the other thing about this build, is it's very easy to sustain this. So the damage can just keep coming. You don't run out of juice on this at all. And like I said previously, if you want to do some Overland stuff that's a little bit more difficult, or even maybe run in a dungeon solo, you can swap this off and put the Ring of the Pale Order on here like this, and then you're going to get a ton of heals. You will get a little bit less damage without the Velothi on, but as you can see here, I'm going to get all my spells going here. You can watch all the heals hitting from all these damage over times and everything. They're just gonna I mean, look at all the heals rolling past me. You could damn near stand in stupid with this, and it's just, you're not going to die with this kind of, I mean, unless it's a one shot that's just going to wipe your bar off the map. If you get hit with something that's more than 18,000, you'll die. But with all those heals, you just keep laying stuff into the ground and let people run into the buzzsaw. This is a lot of fun. Give it a try. If you like this video, check out my YouTube channel and go down to my created playlists. And that's where all of my organized Elder Scrolls Online content is. Thanks for watching again, and I'll see you in another video. Bye.